Total revenues for anything under program code 700. And then the project codes are 761, which I believe was, I had to do a refresher on which that one was. That was the emergency operating cost funds that you received from USDA. So that would be part of it because it's tied to NSLP and SBP. 763 and 764, as we know, is National School Lunch, School Breakfast. 765 is special milk. And then your 385s, your 331, 332, 334, 335 are some of those flex benefits that you're able to include there. And then 791 and 792. Oh, 792 might be an error, I just noticed. 791 is the equipment grant. So if you received equipment grant, because that's tied to NSLP, that would be included. And I'm just noticing 792, that's interesting. Might need to get further clarification on that. I apologize. 800 is also, some of you do things in your activity fund with child nutrition, and that's why 800 is listed. So there's an asterisk, and then the same thing applies to your CNP expenditures, but they also throw in their 591, which are manual. I'm referencing my manual as I look because I want to make sure I get all these correct and straight. 591, project reporting code 591 represents impact aid funds, which are unrestricted, and schools may use them at their discretion. So that's why that's included in there. And again, you may or may not code anything to that with CNP, but it's optional. So those are the revenue and expenditures, and those are in our child nutrition manual that we update every year. It's online, and it's the calculation and the information for 3-month operating and the codes we use are in there, and it's page C30. Actually, it's probably starts on C20. Some of it starts on C29 and C30. So just FYI on that. So I just wanted to touch base on that. And again, based on what you report on those codes, not USDA, we had a USDA call today, I apologize. OCAS provides us, once they've gotten your OCAS report for the last year squared away and closed out, they provide us a report with those. And that's what we base this on. So if do I have access? No, I don't have control of the screen. Kendra, you can go to the next one. So today we're really here just to discuss what these funds can be spent on. We also are seeing more this year that exceeded that, and you've got to think about why that is. Last school year, you were serving all meals free. Majority of school districts were operating virtually and able to serve even non-enrolled students, so community kids. So maybe you fed your enrolled kiddos virtually in a grab and go setting. You were also able to feed maybe the 2-year-old in that family too, or multiple extra kids. Maybe that family had another family with them at that time because of what was going on with COVID, and you fed those kids. So all free and potentially more than you normally would, there would be excess money in your accounts potentially. And you need to think about, for this current year, you're also receiving, you may not be serving those additional unenrolled kids because you're in person this year versus the way you operated last year being virtual. So maybe you're only serving your enrolled kiddos, but think about the reimbursement you're receiving. You're being reimbursed at the summer feeding rate, and that's the highest rate of reimbursement that these programs allow. And if you remember, in January, lunch alone in summer feeding went up 25 cents. So there's a lot more in reimbursement being received even this year. So those are some things you've got to think about. Okay, so let me get back to the slides, just some things I wanted to refresh you all on. So you do need to get a plan submitted if you did exceed and receive that letter. We have extended that because some maybe weren't aware they got the letter or what to do with it. So we've extended that. We've pushed it even 2 weeks out from roughly today. Sorry, my computer is doing something strange. I apologize. Not sure what's happening. Okay, I think I'm good. The monies need to be spent by June 30th of 22, Or if you've got some in there and you're looking to save up for something bigger than the amount you have, you can let us know that we're going to carry this over into the next year because we're going to buy a big walk-in fridge or freezer or something to that effect. So we just need to know that we've got to have that documentation in here, because potentially you will maybe exceed next year, and then
I don't have volume.
If everybody could go ahead and thank you. Everybody's on mute, I think. You potentially, the money you have this year will be carried over into next year, and with any maybe excess you might have next year, you'll be able to buy that larger item that you're thinking about hopefully being able to purchase. And a lot of times right now, child nutrition normally doesn't have this kind of excess because you don't serve everybody free, multiple meals at a time, community kiddos that aren't enrolled and such. So this is kind of unprecedented, as many of the things we've been dealing with are. Maybe the item is potentially out of stock and won't be in for a little bit, because we are hearing that. Supply chain issues. We know it's happening with food and child nutrition. It's also happening in other areas such as supplies, equipment, and many other things. So that really is what we just need, that documentation on hand. USDA reviews that documentation, as well as the state auditors when we have one, and we are having one right now, and they're going to be asking for this documentation very soon. So, okay, I think I'm good with that one. We'll go to the next slide. There is a memo, 07-2015. I meant to grab it. I've got it right here. It really deals with, it's regarding, the subject matter is regarding nutrition education costs in the National School Lunch School Program using funds, but the items that it mentions in there that are bullet pointed out of what's allowable and not allowable is applicable to what we're dealing with. So we went ahead and referenced this memo. We also have some information in our child nutrition manual on C45 and C47 regarding 3-month operating balance, and allowable and unallowable costs as well. And then I believe Kendra sent out an attachment in an email that it also lists some allowable and unallowable information, which may be a little bit more than what's in our manual. So we wanted you to be aware of that. Let's see. You can also code some salaries to that. I have asked USDA and I haven't gotten a response yet, and I'm going to make a note to follow up with them. There's some things you can ask them and they hope you forget, I'll be honest with you. And so we have to keep them on our toes. But I did ask, and I'm not saying that this is allowed until I get further clarification, but I've had several districts ask if they could pay, and I don't want to use the term bonus, but that's the best term to use with some of these funds. And I don't have an answer for that. Typically the answer is no. But early on in COVID, USDA gave a little bit of leeway with that. And so I've asked if this could be used for that. And they were supposed to check with the national office. So I'm waiting. Carrie, a great word for that is stipend. Thank you very much. That was escaping me, but that is, I am looking at that because we've had several districts ask about that. And I'm not opposed to trying to find that out for you. So more to come on if that's allowable. Equipment and technology, any item, as Kendra mentioned, that's on P8 of our child nutrition manual, those are allowable purchases with CN funds. If it's not on that list and it's over $5,000, I do have to approve it. And basically I need 2 quotes when you send that information to me. You do have to go with the lower quote unless you can provide justification as to why you need to go with the higher quote. But I have to have all that in documentation, because again, this gets reviewed by USDA and our state auditors. So the purchase of materials to improve participation, also increase the quality of food is a reason to use these funds for. And trust me, I do realize that food is hard to come by right now. We understand that. That's just something that is in the guidance that USDA gives. And then improvements in the cafeteria, upgrades to equipment and such, like things like that. My email is also in that slide if you need to get my approval for equipment or anything that's not on that list on P8. And I get several a day, quite a few actually lately. They've been coming in fast and furious. I try to get to them just as quick as I can, and answer the questions that are needed when they come in, because I know you're on a short turnaround with this. You're also trying to get, if you know you can get the equipment at that point, you're trying to get it ordered so that it can get in, because maybe you're one of the lucky ones that can get what you're looking for, whereas some of the others are struggling to get some of the items they're looking for. So, okay, I think we're good on that one, Kendra. Thanks. So some additional items that you can purchase and are allowable that probably wouldn't put you over the 5,000 or need my approval for, but some of your kitchen smallware, such as upgrading pots and pans, knives, serving utensils, your computer point of service system, if there's an upgrade to that. I believe yesterday, and that's on our P8, so that's allowable. Yesterday, a district asked me, they want to go to more of a fingerprint type system for the point of service, rather than a number or a card, and that's an allowable item. So flooring or mats in the kitchen that your ladies stand on, or the slip proof things under the sink that you deal with. If you're not using styrofoam and you need to buy actual like food trays, those are allowable. Dishwasher, if you need to upgrade your dishwasher to go to maybe plastic trays, or sometimes a lot of school districts are dealing with, those certain pieces of equipment are going out, like a dishwasher, and maybe they need to get it fixed. That's an allowable cost. Some other things we've included here, air fryers, tilt skillets, convection ovens, milk boxes, salad bars, things like that. Those are allowable. Paying salaries in child nutrition to code to 700 instead of general fund. Right now, and in years past, sometimes your general fund covers your CNP salaries because there's not enough money in child nutrition, but right now there might be able to. So maybe you switch some of those costs back to child nutrition while that's available. The additional funds are available. When you're adding new equipment, sometimes you have to remember the hookups or the hoses or the cables might change. So be sure and include that when you're including that in all your quotes and information that you're gathering for all of this. So don't forget some of that information. Okay, I think we're good on that one. And then unallowable, in very rare instances, does USDA approve a land purchase, which I've never heard of a land purchase being approved. In fact, we looked into that for a school district wanting to maybe buy a little bit of plot of land to do a farm to school garden, and they denied it. So a full building or reconstruction of a cafeteria or a kitchen is not allowed. Equipping that kitchen is different. And then construction, moving full walls, they call that kind of capital expenditures, and they're very rare, but when I do get those, I don't necessarily deny them up front. I do reach out to USDA. It takes a lot of detail. So if you're going to send me something like that in hopes that they might consider something like that, I need a lot of detail to it. But it's rare that they do it, and it's something that I have to go to them for. So just kind of keep that in mind. And again, as I stated more than once, it's very rare. If the item you're purchasing is not solely for child nutrition programs, the cost must be prorated. Or you need to use the OCAS indirect costs that they assign to each district every year. That's another way to do it. So it's kind of what you can use one of the two items, but if it's going to be shared with another program, child nutrition can't fully fund it when it's shared with another program. An example of that would be, I've had a couple larger districts reach out about a food truck, and they were very honest and upfront and said, we're going to use it mainly for child nutrition, but we're going to probably use it at a ball game situation, or maybe as a concession stand or something like that. And so I needed a methodology to how they were going to justify that. And again, that is something I do discuss with USDA. They're pretty picky on some of those, such as the one I did just talk about, if it's a big capital expenditure, and then items that are kind of split, they do. I kind of have learned based on dealing with several things, what way they're going to go, and when I do need to reach out to them, and when I don't. So cafeteria tables are are an allowable expense. I just saw that pop up in the chat. So we're going to get to the chat. So don't think we're ignoring any questions in there. Okay. Next one. And again, the documentation that needs to be sent in to Becky once you've gotten it approved by me, if it needs to be. She would need the invoices or purchase orders from the purchased items or items to be purchased if it goes after the June 30th because maybe you can't get it. Excuse me, statements and or clarifications maybe regarding the salaries that were previously paid with general fund and are now going to be paid with child nutrition funds. Send in the salaries paid and write a statement on how these employees were paid under general fund, and they're going to switch to child nutrition fund because you have those excess funds and that's what you're going to use this for. That's acceptable. And again, a reminder, anything that's not on the list that's over $5,000 does need to come in here prior to that for approval with 2 quotes attached. Okay, next, please. If there have to be, because of maybe purchasing issues, supply chain issues after June 30th, we still will need all the documentation of the invoices and statements are still required to be sent in to validate that the money was spent. We have our information here of who you can send that or how you can send it. You can mail it if you choose to. Our fax is 405-521-2239. And Becky Gray's email is there, and it's becky.gray@sde.ok.gov. Okay, and that may be the last slide. No, procurement. I forgot we added that. Again, at all times, this is federal dollars, you have to follow federal procurement. And so there's information on procurement in our child nutrition manual as well under the procurement section. And there's the potential that, during a procurement review, this will be reviewed. You need to follow your district's procurement plan to ensure you are properly following procurement according to regulations. And if you have questions, you can reach out to us. Kendra put her contact information on there specifically, but there's others that can help with that as well. Even your child nutrition regional specialist can help you with that. Out in the field can help with that. Okay. Anybody? Okay. So now give me a minute. We've got lots of things going on in chat. I know a lot of that was asking Becky if you got a letter, but can you just give just a second to get caught up? Thank you. Okay, so somebody did put in there regarding, because I did mention on one of our Monday school calls that we were looking at, and this is another question I have to USDA. We ran the report like we normally do with the codes that I mentioned at the beginning, which just include basically NSLP and SBP. And if you remember last school year, you were able to operate SFSP year-round, the summer feeding program year-round. Well, summer feeding doesn't normally play into 3-month operating because it is just National School Lunch. So I have posed the question to USDA, when we are determining these 3-month operating balances, because they were operating, the districts that were operating summer feeding, should that be included? I asked them on the call this morning. They told me that was a great question. They hadn't thought of that and they'd have to get back to me. So now I've since emailed them as a reminder that I need a follow up to that. So as of right now, that we're unsure. So Renita, you asked that question. I'm waiting for information on that, if they want that included or if they don't want that included. Okay. So again, scrolling because there's a lot of county district codes listed here, and I know Becky's working as quickly as she can to answer those. Okay. So. Christy, the documentation in CARS would be under, there's going to be the child nutrition manual document heading. And it'll be, it's broken out by section. So we've got compliance, eligibility, procurement, and cafeteria managers. It's going to be in the compliance section. I did just address the 766, and I apologize, my chat keeps jumping. It keeps going to the bottom. Oh, I hate it when it does that. Okay, I'm waiting to determine by USDA, because many of you did operate 766 summer feeding, which is 766. I'm waiting for guidance on that. The initial information that went out did not include 766 because regulation and guidance don't typically include 766 because, again, it's tied to NSLP. So right now it's not. We have a report with it, but we're waiting on guidance. Okay. Oh my gosh, it did it again. Sorry. Handouts are in CARS for this under other documents, and then under the heading CNP documents. Purchasing a walk-in freezer is an allowable expense with these funds. Yes, they are. We can get walk-ins done for. Okay, so it sounds like walk-ins are an issue regarding supply chain. Okay, good to know. I'm not surprised. Let's see, somebody says the amount I was given is closer to what my 3-month carryover would be and not what it is over. So what do I need to do? Something is extremely wrong. Sherry, I would reach out to OCAS because they're pulling what was reported by the district is what we've been told. And then they just provide that to us. I believe the slides will be on CARS when this is over, as well as the recording. And okay. I'm reading one. Okay, yes, it is being recorded, and it will be posted on CARS.
It looks like that.
Yes, milk boxes are allowed. Again, it keeps jumping, so I apologize. Yeah, Kendra's addressing the slides and the information in CARS. It will be there. We do have to wait to get the audio closed captioned for ADA requirements. And so that takes it'll probably be by tomorrow afternoon. Sometimes it's sooner. Okay, where am I? Held out. Okay. Okay, sorry. Every time somebody puts it, it jumps. If we have to carry over to next year, how will we code that? It is carried over as revenue, is what I've been told. How do we determine? The formula is in the child nutrition manual on let me get you a page number, Jenny. C30. It's in there. It's across the top. It tells you exactly how we do it. Oh, sorry, Kendra answered that. I'm kind of taking them one at a time.
No, I tried to help on the things that I could during while you were going.
If I would have looked one more, I would have seen that. So no worries. 3-month carryover. And there it was again. No worries. Sorry. I'm trying to keep it from jumping, so I'm trying not to get too far ahead. You could do that for this year. Marty, I believe it's too late to do it for last year because they've already closed the report out, but you can do it for this year. Cafeteria tables, that was the one I saw a little bit ago. Yes, you can do cafeteria tables. I've had several requests for cafeteria tables recently. Making sure that oven is an already approved item. Yeah, I believe oven is in there. I can go to that P8 real quick. Cooking equipment, commercial ovens, combi, convection, or conventional ovens are listed in there. And don't forget, yeah, electrical is an issue. Upgrading, sometimes some of you have some older kitchens that when you put new equipment in, the electrical has to be updated. And since that's in the kitchen and it's solely an expense to be able to operate the program, you can also do that. Or maybe that, Okay, nutrition funds are deposited in our general fund. Our general fund actually pays for about half the cafeteria expenses, so there has never been a month. Well, Brenda, I'm going to lean towards on your question regarding it's going into the general fund, but everything's coded specifically to these codes. And again, I flipped, you know, the 763, the 764. So you've reported them. While you're reporting them in general fund, my understanding is you're still reporting them under project code 700 and the, program code 700, and then all the related project codes. So I believe that's what OCAS is pulling that information from. Okay, cafeteria tables. I need a little more information. I've had some schools been approved for like a smart TV type in the cafeteria, and some that have not been approved. So I would need some more information on that in more of a justification so that I can have the information and double check with USDA on. That's one of those things that I kind of have to check with them. And I have before, and sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. Depends what they're being used for. Again, my chat jumped. I apologize. Oh, shoot, it jumped. Okay, there we are. Okay, so tile flooring and stuff in the kitchen isn't allowable because again, it's in the kitchen, it's child nutrition, it's there, it's solely for that, and so that would be allowable. I have approved several of those. And yes, you would need to go ahead and send that information in. So you want to be sure and include all the appropriate costs associated with that as well. Oh my goodness, there we go again. As far as holding off till we get a ruling from USDA, I'm kind of on the fence on that because we do have a kind of a short time frame here. We've already backed up the 2 weeks to give us a spin down plan. I'm not going to say I'm just on the, I don't want you to get in a bind with getting what you need, but you also need to know if you really have that money, and I get that. So I think that would be acceptable. I'm hoping they know that I want an answer because we're trying to get this done and get the information to you all correctly. So I'm hoping, in fact, I will probably follow up with them by Monday if I don't hear something. Sometimes I get a little impatient with them. They've been really good though, I'll be honest. They've really done a good job getting things answered in a timely fashion. Okay. Where was I? Here we go. So if 766 is included and it causes the carryover amount to go down, what happens? Well, it'll depend if it goes down, you might not be over your 3 month at that point. So you may not. But again, what we originally sent out does not include 766 because the way the regulation reads, and I have a sneaking suspicion they'll tell me to just stick with what we have because of the way the reg is. They really try to tie everything back to the reg. And so I'm not sure how much wiggle room there is there. I just find it interesting that it hasn't been addressed by them because they're the ones that allowed summer feeding to go year round last year. So, okay, okay, I did that one. So we have 50 in the bank now with bills to pay. We were supposed to spend 43. So that's a good point. I know you can't and the cost of food's going up too. Again, some of this can be spent going towards and food costs because food costs are going up too every day, it seems. But so yes, you're right. That could cause you to go into the red. I agree with that. Mr. Patton, did you receive a letter that you exceeded? I have to believe you may have. Oh, so let me, again, I'll get back to that response. Let's see. When following the coding listed to determine carryover, we show that we should not even be close to exceeding. Something appears to be wrong. Okay. Oh, you didn't get any. Okay. You've reached out to OCAS. Exceeded. Okay. Let me get a piece of paper. Krista, if you could put in the chat your district. Because if they, okay, so you've reached out to OCAS and it appears they weren't sure what. Okay, I'll get to that. 175, 442. Okay. Not necessarily do I need quotes before March 23rd. If you know how you're going to spend it down, but you haven't received your quotes, you can let Becky know what your plan is, and then you could get me the quotes if you're struggling to get quotes. I don't know. I had a superintendent reach out to me today that he was struggling to get quotes back because he said, how many do I need to get? And it's the 2 or more. And he was only able to get 1. And I said, well, if you're able to show me proof that you did try to get 2 or more, we can go with that. And you could go with your 1 quote. We just have to have the documentation. It all comes back to documentation. I think most of you can probably understand that with other people looking at things, we just have to be able to show and document our processes. Oh gosh, there it jumped again. There we go. I'll call back up. Do you, if anything over your 3-month operating is what has to be spent. So it's not a percentage of your 3-month operating, it's that. So if your 3-month operating came back as exceeding by $20,000, it's $20,000. Okay, what if we have to knock out a wall to get a walk-in into our kitchen? I'm pretty sure that would be allowable, but that would be something I would double check with USDA on. But I think that one would be. We took the formula that was in the CA manual, not hardly over any at all. We took our figures from the FR3 report. Okay, I don't, Cindy, I can't, I would probably need to talk a little bit more about that. Oh, sorry, where is the list? Where is the form or the list of information you need to by the March 23rd date is when we need your spend down plan into the office, what you're going to spend it down on. It's not, you don't have to spend it by that date, but we need to know what it's being spent on. Yes, milk boxes are allowed. In most cases, yes, a unit in the kitchen and cafeteria area are allowable. Again, the documentation is what I would need. The video will be posted on our cars online tomorrow. By tomorrow, most likely, tomorrow afternoon. Thanks, Trudy. You're so funny. I hope you're doing well, by the way. So can we recode salaries to 700? You could, going forward, yes. You can't go back and do last year's. It's the report's closed in OCAS. That's done. I do have an updated report from OCAS with 766, and that's what I'm waiting on more information from USDA regarding that. We did have them run a second one because school districts did summer feeding last year, and we kind of thought that might need to be included, but again, waiting on guidance from them if they're going to just stick to what guidance and regulation states, which is NSLP and SVP, or because the school districts that did operate summer feeding, should that be included? I've reached out to some other states in our region, and they've kind of done it. It's been a combination, and they didn't ask USDA. So I was the first state to ask, I guess, for our region. We have 7 states in our region. Okay, sorry, it jumped again. That one, okay.
I had a question for you.
Okay.
Superintendent with Tonga Public Schools. I'm pretty sure we're over, but we hadn't. This is my first year as superintendent here, but we haven't received anything.
Okay.
Somewhere where we can look to see if we're on the list, or
we will. Yes, Becky's looking for some right now. We will. We'll check that and let you know.
Perfect. My other question is, pretty sure we're over, but I'd like to. We're building a new cafeteria through a bond, and so we're going to use the overage to buy equipment
Yes.
for the for that. So we would just put on there. We're going to buy kitchen equipment for the new cafeteria the following year. Will that work?
Yes, and maybe a rough estimate of what you think that's going to be, so we can ensure that would go over that amount if you did exceed.
Yeah,
yes,
and I'd put that on there. I just don't really know yet because
right.
They haven't even finished the designs on it yet, so that's
Okay.
kind of.
But yes, that can. I've had several districts reach out to me that are in the same boat, and they've got maybe a remodel of a kitchen they need to add equipment to, or an expansion of a kitchen that they need to add equipment or a serving line. Things like that are allowable. Yes.
Hey, I appreciate you. Thank you for what you do.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for what you have done too. Okay, let me get back to the chat. Sorry, I'm trying to stay caught up. That one I've done. I think I've done that. Minimum. Please let us know the minimum that you are expecting in the plan that is due by March 23rd. Do you anticipate, or do you need a list of anticipated purchases to come and anticipated costs, or simply just a list of what we have purchased and what we anticipate? A list of how you're going to spend that down, of what you've purchased, and what you're going to be purchasing to spend that down. Yes. You are going to check on what project code we are using when we code the new expenditure. You're going to check. Sorry, received. You're going to check on what project code we are using when we code the new expenditure. I'm not following that question, Paula. I apologize. Walk through warmers. That's a new one. A pass-through warmer, maybe? Because I'm not sure what a walk-through warmer is, but I do know what a pass-through warmer is. So if you put that down in the chat, which will then cause my chat to jump, but I'll get back to it. Already been expended because we replaced a walk-in freezer unit along with higher food cost. No, Chris, you sent me something separate directly. Let me check real quick. Walk-in cooler. Walk-in cooler and freezer are on here, and I know they're over $5,000. I don't know where I got 7. So you're good to go there, Chris. Oh, now that's a new one. Kitchen and cafeteria roof. I'm probably going to need to check, but based on some other things I've asked about, I'm going to say that's probably a no. Kitchen, cafeteria roof. I would need a little bit of detail. I don't mind asking at all, but a few other things that I kind of thought they might. Okay, USDA being they chalked it up to a capital expenditure and was not allowed. But I have not had roof, so I'm not opposed to reaching out and trying to push to get it based on some justification you can provide me. But ultimately, if they say no, it's no. So I'm not. So Chad, if you want to send me any of that information, feel free. And I'm all for reaching out to them and seeing what I can get done. Isn't this likely to happen again next year to all of us as all the students ate free? Yeah. And the other thing I mentioned earlier on the call, we're reimbursed this year right now at the highest reimbursement rate. So there's a good chance that the same thing will happen next year. You are correct. Um, sorry, it jumped again. It didn't used to do this. Okay, does the plan have to have exact costs? We're not sure. No, not exact, because again, things can fluctuate a little bit. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, it's not necessarily going to be exact. Oh my gosh, this is driving me crazy. I apologize. Can we use the money for child nutrition salaries next year? Yes, you can. Yes, use the salaries for, yes, you can. If you want to pay salaries out of child nutrition. Can we use the funds, or you could even what you're in right now, start coding your salaries to child nutrition, which could potentially help even for when we're a year from now looking at 3-month expenditures based on this year. Can we use the funds to pay general fund if they invoice CNP for facility use, rental of facilities? General fund pays for all building expenses, water, gas, and electric. There has to be a methodology to that, unless your child nutrition, water, gas, electric, etc., are on a separate meter. If not, you need to need to come up with a methodology of how. It can be based on square footage. A lot of school districts do it based on square footage of the kitchen and the cafeteria eating area, and that's the percentage of what child nutrition would pay of those bills. Electric, water, etc. I really apologize. I don't know why the chat continues to jump. I've done that one. Well, okay, that's the one I did. Okay, so if we did not get a letter, yeah, if you didn't get a letter and you're certain you didn't get the letter, some feel like they may have gotten a letter, but it went, and you never know, you might check your spam or your junk email also. I know sometimes firewalls cause issues with emails from us because they cause issues when you all send them to us. They come in as junk or phishing emails, etc., and we have to okay it to get it. So, okay, you might double check that. But again, it went to the superintendent and the authorized representative. If those people are the same person in the district, it went to that one person. So, oh gosh. We are going to have expensive years next year compared to the last two. I agree. Paid lunches, increased costs. We've had horribly low free and reduced applications turned in, so we no longer 50% free. Yep, I agree. A lot of schools are dealing with that. Your question regarding can we just hold on to it? I mean, I can double check. I should have gotten a bigger piece of paper rather than a sticky note. I think we're required, I'm pretty certain we're required to tie it to something. But I can definitely check on that. Jenny, go ahead, and I'm going to say this and my chat's going to jump. If you want to put your district in the chat, I'm more than happy to check on that. I'm not opposed to that at all. Trying to help you guys out as much as I can with this within regulation and allowability. The memo, Jennifer mentions, or to lower the price charged to students. Could we provide assurance that we will lower the student lunch price in 22-23 to satisfy? That is in that memo, and that is also in regulations, rather than potentially going up the minimum of 10 cents that the PLE requires the increase in every year. If you want to hold that to that whatever, well, you haven't had anybody pay for lunches for 2 years either. So that's been a whole nother question we've had for USDA of where do you guys even start with charging for paid lunches when there hasn't been a lunch charge in 2 years. So supposed to be getting back with us on that as well. So yes, that is something you can do. Hold that, you can, because that's in regulations. There's that. I only got one for tilt skillet so far. Okay, if 766 was not calculated, then 769 was our only other program. And I agree with that, Chris, 769. But again, 769 is CACFP, which is not tied to an SLP or SBP. We just finished on Saturday. Has our revenue and expenditure report showing we're around 0. Okay. That was probably for that program, just 769. And 769 is not figured into the 3-month operating, because based on the requirement for the 3-month operating, it's just NSLP and SBP. Kyle, we answered your question. We'll let you know. We also have to spend 48, and that will make us go over budget. Can't go over budget. No, we reached out to OCAS. We only carried over 55, and they said I have to spend 48. Okay. Cindy. Okay. Again, Cindy, we may need to chat more about that. And I think no, there's no particular form, just even an email or on letterhead, just your plan to spend the funds, what your plan is to spend the overage down. Can I explain why the U.S. communities quote is not adequate to meet the multiple quote requirement? That's not up to me. That's up to USDA. They require 2 quotes, and one could be the U.S. communities, and one could be the state contract quote. But we've had over the years many times we've been pushed to only allow when it's an entity like this U.S. communities quote or even our state contract quote, because they bid out to multiple. USDA doesn't really seem concerned about that. They still want to see 2 quotes from 2 completely separate entities. So that's not me, that's USDA. Page 8 of the our child nutrition manual that we update every year. Mr. Hillerbrand, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Becky has put in the chat that you are not on the list. Oh gosh, there it jumped again. It was doing really well there for a few minutes.
That was me. I put something in there regarding, just FYI, someone asked about how the formula, I put what the formula is for the 3-month
Okay, very good.
odds.
Okay, Holdenville hasn't gotten a letter. Becky just checking you. Okay, that's to Becky. Did I miss something about sending quotes to SDE? Do we have to show our quotes, or can we just provide you the items and the price we are encumbering? You're required to get 2 quotes for items. If it's anything over 5,000 and not on the pre-approved list on page P8, it needs to be sent in to me for approval. There's a lot of things on that list, but then there's some things that aren't. So, but you are required to get a minimum of 2. You can always get more, but it is 2 are required.
This is Brenda Burkett jumping in. I'm the one that asked that question. So you want us to send you the quotes. I mean, I get it. You keep repeating that we've got to get at least the 2 quotes, but you actually, as we send our plan in by the 23rd, we're supposed to be sending in all of our quotes at that same time?
Well, if you know how you're going to spend it and roughly what it's going to cost, you can send in your plan and let Becky know. And then if you don't have the quotes back for whatever reason, maybe, I don't know, maybe they're slow or they're doing a lot of quotes potentially right now, you can get those to me and then get the approval. And then ultimately, if they're reasonably tied to CNP purchases, they're typically not denied. It's when we get some things that are kind of a gray area, you know, a capital expenditure, for example, that's kind of gray because it can go either way depending on what it is. But when it's something on similar to what's on P8, and I'm sure there's some things that could be updated on that. This is just the list that we had sent to USDA and were approved for several years back. And so we've just kept it at that. So if it's a questionable item, and I need to reach out to USDA for more information or to make sure it's allowable. That's one thing, but typically once they come in and I've got the 2 quotes and I can tell it's an allowable cost to CNP, it's going to be approved. I don't try to hold things up to be difficult by any means. I want you to be able to get what you need to do as quickly as possible. So you can let Becky know what you're going to do. And then if you have the quotes now, send them to me, and then you can send Becky the plan. That's okay too. Does that even answer your question? Maybe, I hope.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, okay, so, okay. Never changed rent or overhead. Oh, never charged rent or overhead for our cafeteria space. Well, you've never charged rent or overhead for your child cafeteria space. I've never been posed that question. To be honest with you, I've never been posed that question, Mr. Fenrick. I would have to check on that to see. Rent or overhead? Head for CNP. Let me see what I can find out. Why did I write that down? Okay, I would like to know how to figure. Tammy, it is in there on.
Yeah, I put that in the chat, the
Okay,
actual formula. Yeah.
You did tell me that. I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's okay. You have a lot of questions. It's okay.
Yes, pass-through warmers are on that list. I gave somebody approval for that this morning. Also, I believe it's why am I not seeing it now? I just looked it up this morning, but yes, it is. Okay. 788. 788.
I'm not finding that in our OCAS 788.
Well, and those were ESSERs and child nutrition didn't receive any of those funds specifically. Now, if that funding allowed for it, and it was tied to specifically NSLP, I would say it probably, well, it wouldn't have been included. I don't think they would have included it. But child nutrition didn't get any CARES Act money specifically based for coronavirus and what's listed. I'm looking at the OCAS book right now as I'm saying that. So anyway, there just wasn't anything specific with ESSER or CARES Act money tied to child nutrition, unless they allowed you to pay things with those funds for child nutrition. And I don't know if that's the case because I wasn't involved with any of those funds. We didn't get any, or child nutrition wasn't given those funds to give out. They were done through, I believe, USDE. Let's see, you do not need to send a quote if it is on the pre-approved list on P8. That is correct. You need to get quotes. I don't have to approve them though if they're on P8. Yes, we would need to know how the overage is being spent. Oh my goodness. Not worried about how to spend the money, but having enough to spend. I understand. That makes sense. Let's see, can we spend the money this year if it looks like we will be over for next year? Can you, I'm a little perplexed by that question. Can we spend the money this year if it looks like we will be over for next year? Yeah, if you can tell right now, I guess maybe I could answer it this way. If you can tell right now for this current year that you're going to exceed that when this report comes out basically in another year, and you have some things you want to purchase, you can do that. Yes. I believe that's where that was going. Okay, we have to fully expend or explain why we can't spend the entire amount, or only we have to fully expend or explain why we can't spend the entire amount by June 30th, or only the amount exceeding. It's the amount exceeding the 3-month operating. So if your letter said you had $20,000 in your 3-month operating was over by $20,000, that's what you would need to amount you would need to spend for the current. I say current year, it's really last year's money, but that's reflected in this year. So you need to fully, yes, expend that. And again, if you want to carry it over for something going forward for a bigger item, you can also do that. We just need that documentation. Okay, so flooring in the kitchen and like cafeteria area, yes. I believe that applies to ceiling tiles. I don't think I've ever been asked about ceiling tiles. Kind of would be with like the roof potentially. Have to be replaced in a room, was built to house a walk-in freezer that was outside. Half has to be paid with building funds. Can the other half come from CNP? So you had to build something to put over the walk-in freezer. The flooring would be, probably need to get information regarding ceiling tiles and the building around the walk-in. I don't know if that would consider that, they might consider that a capital expenditure, but again, the flooring, Tammy Hutchins would be. We might need to get more information on the others. Okay, county district bill, skipping over some of these. Can we use increase in food costs as a percentage? Yes, you can. That has been done before. So again, food costs in that has been done before. It just hasn't been until really recently that that's come up, but yes. Okay, Bernie Thomas. So you received the letter that you needed to spend the 49. Your auditor looked and doesn't see where we exceeded the 3-month average. Okay. Bernie, if you could put in the chat your district, please. Did you say the supply chain assistance funds will be available? We're going to pay supply chain assistance funds. So we're going to a different topic. Most of you received a letter this week for supply chain assistance funds. We're going to pay those the week of March 21st. If you've returned your attestation statement stating you're opting in, and there's an unlimited time to spend that. USDA did not put a time frame to spend the supply chain assistance funds. Somebody put a whole different subject in the chat, so that was specific to supply chain assistance funds. Okay, Kendra's answering a question there. I don't believe Justice. Okay, Chris Bryan is Justice. Okay. I don't believe Justice had. Okay, Kendra, is that for the? Is there a particular form? No, there's no particular form. You can just do something on letterhead of how you're planning on spending that. That would be fine, and email it to Becky. The spin down plan is March 23rd. If that's what you're referring to, the supply chain attestation statement is due back by March 14th. I'm not sure which one. Based on the time of that chat, it was probably the spin down plan. Okay, if we made a purchase this year of a milk box, freezer, another item for PA. Yeah, Randy, you could use that. What you've purchased this year. Yeah, that would be fine because the milk box looks like the items you listed on there are part of that P8. So as long as you got your 2 quotes, I hope that would be fine. A delivery vehicle for child. Yes, we have approved those type of items, delivery vehicles, a box truck specifically for child nutrition use only. Those have been done. Again, you've got to get 2 quotes. I am hearing from some others that have recently sent me quotes for items like a box truck or a delivery type truck that they're hard to come by right now. So that's just, but yes, they are. Could you check on Maple? Okay, Laura. Would a small bus used for student transportation? Probably need a little bit more information on that, Anita, and just documentation on exactly the details. It's pretty specific to what it would be used for. Might be able to get that done. I'm willing to go to bat to try and get it done for you if you want to get it to me. I don't have a problem doing that. USDA loves me. Can you tell? I'm just teasing. Is the money schools are getting from the supply chain assistance include? No. Well, it wasn't for what the, well, let me take that back. Let me delete that. No, it wasn't for what we're dealing with right now. Now for next year, that's a great question. I don't know if we've thought about that because it is tied to NSLP and SBP only. So they may have us include that. That's a great question for USDA because we need to be thinking about that. Because again, 3-month operating is based on NSLP and SBP, and the supply chain assistance funds are specifically for NSLP and SBP. So I'm going to lean towards potentially. But what we're dealing with right now in your 3-month operating that we're talking about today did not include supply chain assistance money, no. But for a year from now, when we're dealing with this again, because we do it every year, it potentially will. Okay, so, and just back to supply chain, I hate to switch subjects, but we have had some schools deny and opt out. So there will be some reallocating. So there could be an increase. Okay, so from what you're saying, until you hear back from USDA about 760 to be included, we need to come up with a plan. I would just be prepared just in case. Yes, I would just in case. It never hurts. LED lighting in the cafeteria. So like changing out lighting completely. Valerie was with Mason. That's another one of those that they will probably consider a capital expenditure. I'm willing to ask. Jamie, if you want to put your district in the chat, I'm willing to ask for you. But I think that's going to be a capital expenditure. They would consider it a capital expenditure. Oh, okay. So you did, okay, ceiling tiles. Good to know. Thank you, Patricia. Mason got you, or Valerie, I got your school district. Oh, Sherry, you didn't get a, okay. Sherry, I really need to get a better piece of paper. You didn't get a supply chain letter. Okay, I'll get Laura to send that to you, Sherry. Okay, my Emma's in the same way. Sorry, just taking a few notes. I realize that we can compute the 3-month carryover, but I realize that we can compute the 3-month carryover, but couldn't the state, i.e. OCAS, show us the math for the amount that was sent to us? I can't speak to if they can or they cannot. My understanding is that they've taken what you've reported in your OCAS reports for last year and figured based on the codes given. Mind touching on supply chain money? Yeah, if you use a management company, and you're opting into the supply chain assistance, they will need to provide you, and we're with an invoice, and we're saying milk. They don't need to give you all their food invoices, because the supply chain assistance funds are based on minimally processed food, and milk is one of those items. So if they bill you your monthly invoice, and again, going to use round numbers in a hypothetical situation, and your monthly invoice is $20,000, and they supply you with an invoice for that month that the milk was $5,000, you can use, of your supply chain funds, you can use $5,000 from the supply chain assistance funds to pay $5,000 of that invoice, because it would apply to milk. The supply chain assistance funds is not additional money for the management company. While I completely understand the management company is right now absorbing the cost of higher food, USDA did not say that that money could go to them for that cost. You can use it to pay a portion of that invoice for, let's say, milk, because it's minimally processed. And they do have to supply you with an invoice, not just a written statement that said for April or whatever month, March, we spent $5,000 on milk. It's got to be an invoice showing it was $5,000. And again, I'm using just round hypothetical numbers. Okay. LED, well, thank you, Blackwell. I wrote that down somewhere. Lighting. Okay. So we've got some schools that didn't get the letter. They were mailed on Monday, and I know we can't control the post office, but I can tell you that they did. Supply chain, okay. I've really got to get a better piece of paper. There's a pad. I knew I had one. Anita. Watkins, okay. Anita, I'm drawing a blank on the district you're with, so if you could put that in the chat. On the supply chain, do we have further information? I did just touch on that. Did I hear? Yes to the ceiling tiles, because that was yes. And then I have approved a air system for the kitchen area in the past. Hoto didn't get it. Okay, sorry, it jumped again. I did that one, checking on that one. Prior, okay, I've got that written down. That prior didn't get a letter. Okay. Okay, so the funds that we spend, how do we know what the funds? The funds that you're spending for the 3-month operating, because it's tied to NSLP and SBP, would be 763 and 764. Fort Gibson, oh my goodness. Didn't get a letter. Okay. Items that meet supply chain assistance, it's minimally processed foods. So fruits and vegetables, milk, we're recommending to spend it on milk. Pay your milk invoice with the supply chain money. That's what we're recommending. Even USDA is saying that, but minimally processed. So your fruits and vegetables, ground beef, those type of foods that has to be Buy American. Think items in the food buying guide. If you're familiar with the food buying guide, those are like whole type foods. Processed items cannot be. So chicken nuggets, corn dogs, pre-made sandwiches, things like that aren't allowed. Does that help? It was in the letter, but you may not have seen that letter. So that should help. But we and USDA are recommending to just use it to pay for milk. Hoto, I got you down. I thought I did. Maybe not. Okay, now I do. Agra, thank you, Anita. I knew that name. I just couldn't place it. Okay. Okay. Our school no longer qualifies for summer feeding, and we host summer school. So would it work great? Yeah, you can't use the funds for that. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. You would have to be actually operating summer feeding to be able to use child nutrition funds and summer feeding funds to pay for that. I agree it would, but it's not allowable. Our superintendent got his letter, but I did not get one as of. Judy, are you referring to supply chain? Snyder? We only need one back, one attestation statement back. Yes, schools that contract with a management company can, yes, use the supply chain assistance funds. And it's not, again, it's not extra money for the food service management company. You can pay a portion of your monthly invoice to the management company for an item like milk if they have to supply you with a milk invoice. And so if their milk invoice shows for the month of March was $5,000 for milk, you can use $5,000 of your supply chain money to pay that $5,000 of that invoice for that month to the management company, but it is not additional money to the management company. And they do have to provide you with an invoice.
And Jennifer, too, if this helps, I talked to Becky today, and it sounds like it is needed. We talked about doing a Q&A for, it sounds like we need it for SCA.
I'm starting to wonder myself.
Yeah, we've been getting some questions, especially regarding food service management companies. So if you want to, we can set that up in the next couple of weeks, like after spring break. If you want us to go ahead and set that up, we can do so.
Probably need to, based on those last few questions we're getting in the chat, kind of worked out its way over to supply chain. You won't necessarily recode your entire invoice for management company to supply chain. It would just be the amount of the milk invoice. If that's what they chose to provide you, they might give you a food invoice, but the portion of that invoice you're paying with supply chain assistance funds, again, I'm keep using the $5,000 for a milk invoice. It's just because that's what's on my brain. That would be coded to the supply chain funds, but the rest of the invoice would be coded to your normal food service management. I wrote Kansas down. On the SCA funds, you said there's an unlimited time to spend those funds. Yes, that is correct. And you can use them next year. Some districts got a very large amount of supply chain funds it was based on enrollment, and they can be used next school year. Yes, 763 and 764 for supply chain assistance. But well, no, no, I take that back. The letter,
759, I believe.
759, you're right. I just couldn't think of it right quick enough, that's coded to. Supply chain assistance is project code 759. That was in the letter. But again, I know sometimes you don't get a copy of the letter. What if we use a management company and they order all the food? Okay, I think maybe I've addressed that. If I haven't addressed it clear enough, please reach out to me. Justice didn't get a letter. Goodness gracious. Okay. So much for the mail system these days. Can we go back and recode the milk invoices starting the beginning of the school year? No, it's March 1st going forward. So the supply chain money is, you can code anything to it starting March 1st. So Weatherford. Renita, I believe you're still with Weatherford. I don't think I have heard you've moved. Texoma. Oh, wow. Laura's going to be busy in a little bit. Fort Gibson, I've got you down. Snyder, I've got you down. What day could we start counting milk invoices towards SCA? March 1st. Okay, we kind of turned. I'm hoping everybody got their questions answered. I've got lots of little notes here. Please, if I don't get back with you, please reach out to me. That one, I ended up getting a bigger note. So, And if you need further clarification on certain things, I know Blackwell LED, I think we answered. Mr. Hillerman. Okay, so one more. Vanita, still no letter. Okay. Well, okay, so now we had two topics towards the end of this call. We went to supply chain assistance information. So the beginning of the call dealt with 3-month operating. The end of the call dealing with supply chain assistance funds. So Cheryl, what letter are you referring to? Okay, and then yes, somebody did direct message me. Ceiling tiles would need to be approved by me if over $5,000. That's a great. Thank you for that. Jenny, thank you. I would like to be included in the FSMC for, well, it'll be, okay. That'll go out. The Zoom information will go out for supply chain assistance. We'll end up doing it after spring break because I know you guys are off. In Mr. Fenrick, in very rare instances, USDA does for large carryovers on a case-by-case basis, they do allow it to be carried over if needed. So if we need to talk about that down the road, or maybe not down the road, we can go that route. We can do that. I'm willing to go either Glencoe. Let me write that down. So if we need to talk about that, we absolutely can do that. Does fresh bread fit the SCA? Like loaf bread, yes, loaf bread is minimally processed. Just a loaf of bread or that type of thing. Now they do kind of go in the weeds when it gets to other breads, but like loaf bread is acceptable. Mustang did not receive. Okay, so Mustang. Okay. All right, so I think we're at the end. Chris Bryan, could you go ahead if you, I think you may, oh, Justice, never mind, I got it. I knew I had it somewhere, but I couldn't see my note, but I found it. No particular format, just something on letterhead as far as the spin down plan. And then there's one in there, Becky, for you to check for Shattuck. Okay, any other questions? I appreciate your time. Thanks for all you all continue to do and have what you have dealt with. We appreciate it. You continue to feed the kids no matter what. You have found a way to get it done, and we thank you for that. We will be sending out information regarding a supply chain assistance call based on the questions we had. We had talked about it in here already, and you just don't ever know for sure. And so we don't want to do something and y'all don't need it, but if you need it, we want to be able to help you and get it taken care of. Okay. One more popped up. Was the question about air units answered? I have been able to approve an air unit for like the kitchen area before. And in some instances, the cafeteria area, but for the cafeteria, we need a little more information. Sometimes when they're a cafetorium, it becomes a whole nother story, but sometimes when it's specific to a cafeteria, we have better luck. So that's one of those, a little bit of a gray area depending on what it is. And so we might need to have that conversation, Alicia, and I don't mind having it. Okay, so I'm caught up in the chat. So we will plan on ending the call. Yes, it will be posted in CARS. The PowerPoint, the audio, once we get closed captioning, the recording will be there as well. Okay, so any other questions? Put them in there as quick as you can. Otherwise, we are done with this, but be on the lookout for a call after spring break regarding supply chain assistance questions and answers. and CNP documents section of CARS. Go to CARS, go to other documents, and then go to CNP documents. That's where it is. You guys have a great spring break next week. And we will be in touch. And that's that, because I don't have anything else in the chat. So thank you, everybody, and we will talk soon. Bye-bye.